padlock. It was useless. The first small plane Pablo Escobar got.
Which we are literally in a bunker. In 1991, Pablo Escobar played a soccer match with Maradona. Well, it opened there. This one, specifically connected to 3 surrounding stashes with $30 billion. Whoever wants to move this door to feel the weight. He started a war that the guy never won. The man measured 1.67 meters. It's a flight simulator. Guys, Pablo Escobar had 70 stash houses just in the city of Medellin. A stash house is a hideout, a front house, not a place used for living, but only to hide money, profits, or maybe if it was necessary, to hide himself for a couple of days or up to a week. Ready, we know that the manhunt since he escaped from La Catedral was completely intensive until the day of his death. But let's take it one step at a time. The stashes obviously had very important features. The main feature was secret doors. This one right here is set up so we can open it together with a voice command. The voice command, the password, is Pablo Escobar's alias. Do you know what they called him? Well, El Patron. Exactly, Patron, El Patron. On the count of 3, I want the 3 of us to say what you just said a little louder. Ready, it's a bit shouty, but Patron. Let it make the floor rumble. Ready, 1, 2, let's go. 3, El Patron. A little louder, don't hold back. Well, it opened there. In other words, we are literally in a bunker. Let's put it that way. We are in a bunker that at one point was a stash. There's a painting there, guys, so you can see what was kept in these types of places. Let me close the door. What was kept in these kinds of stash houses? What you are seeing in the painting I mentioned, gold and money. Why gold, guys? Because as you saw, these places were totally, how should I say, hidden, reinforced at the same time, and because of that, they were very prone to something called humidity. That humidity damaged and rotted the paper money. They were losing profits. Yes, to avoid that, it had to be converted to gold quickly so it would last and not lose its value over time. We are talking about the fact that Pablo Escobar in his prime managed to earn more than $60 million in a single day. That became the profit that led him to be one of the richest people in the entire world, obviously. Number 7 at the time, according to Forbes magazine in the United States, with a net worth of $30 billion. This, guys, that is obviously a lot of money today. Imagine back in the 80s or 70s, you basically have to multiply that by 3 or 4. The hideout houses were connected by tunnels. Tunnels like the one you saw here, where only this little part was left for demonstration. The side of the tunnel, guys, is already totally closed off over here and there is not much to see here really. The most interesting thing is the tunnel or the map you see at the end of the tunnel, which you can see from here. This is the ceiling of the tunnel. So you almost have to crawl.
But then this.
Why did they seal this off already? It was left as a demonstration because it's closed, since those houses that were connected are now used for something totally different and more routine. In fact, I don't know if you saw a house that was like in a unit over there locked on the other side of the street that was like a white house. That white house had an entrance with that little tunnel, it was, and those tunnels literally connected, let's say, from the hideout to where they would exit in such a case. Let's put it that way. Right, a single tunnel, guys. This one specifically connected with 3 hideouts around it, like the house I mentioned over there, but also with a secret spot in this same house. At the end of the tour, in fact, you can see the hideout, which is a much smaller compartment, just for containment. Look that up there is an X, even exit 7, exit 8, exit 5, it is so you can see how they were distributed. Oh, okay. Location. A single tunnel was used to escape or to move money between vaults, between hideouts, depending on the whole operation. Something curious, guys, is that as you can see the tunnel or the entrance is below the waist and that is not normal, but it was totally planned. Why? Because according to what Pablo and all his people said, well, the police were lazy, in quotes, right? It is only a designation because when they look for a hole they would do it like this at the top. If you notice, that always happens. They almost never touch a bottom part because it takes extra effort. There are 14 photos of Pablo Escobar there, from when he was a baby until a year before his death. 1 year before, Pablo was born on December 1st, 1949, in Rio Negro, where on the 3rd photo, he moved to Envigado with his family, and that's when he realized his family was indeed lower middle class. It wasn't incredibly extreme poverty or destitution, not necessarily, but they were living with just the bare minimum. That was the problem for him. And we know that Pablo had a very greedy mind. The guy used to say that if he wasn't a millionaire by 30, he would shoot himself. That was something that was actually said. Now, what was he doing when he was just 14 or 15? Starting to steal headstones from cemeteries along with his cousin Gustavo. In the series, we know him as Gonzalo, Gustavo Gaviria, guys, his right-hand man and one of Pablo's best friends. At just 14 or 15, they took headstones from cemeteries for the marble they had, grabbing them recently placed, sanding them down to remove the names and dates, and reselling them elsewhere. Which became something totally punishable, terrible, and very, very dark, considering they were headstones and they were just 14-year-old kids, right? 19. This man got into local smuggling, moving Marlboro cigarettes, tobacco, whiskey or liquor in general, drugs, and appliances. In a, remember, purely local manner. At 22, he and his cousin Gustavo started robbing banks again. They robbed more than 10 banks in a single year with exactly the same motorcycle and the same strategy. I don't know if you remember the motorcycle or that. The red and black one. On one side you see one color and, indeed, guys, here is the motorcycle. Got it. We'll see it now so you can realize what the strategy was. But it was exactly painting it two colors to throw off pedestrians on one side or the other. But here at 22, he always looked. How is it that people used to look older? He looked pretty big. Yes, in those last two photos, you can really see a big jump, right? But you'll see how old he was. To understand Pablo Escobar's impact, you have to look here. 26 years old. This man understood that the local smuggling I mentioned was child's play, or at least that's how he put it. He obviously wanted to be something much bigger, but Pablo Escobar didn't reinvent the wheel. He just learned how to make it spin faster. With this, I want to make it clear that he did indeed have a pioneer or teacher, another Colombian female drug trafficker. When Pablo Escobar was only moving appliances locally, she already had all the routes to Miami set up and established. Who am I talking about? The so-called Griselda Blanco, or the Godmother, or the Black Widow. We know Griselda, right? We've heard of her at least somewhere. A pioneer, a teacher to Pablo Emilio Escobar Gaviria, both here in Colombia and even in Peru. Let's remember, Griselda had Coca labs in Colombia, Peru, and Bolivia. It was strictly learning in Peru. It had nothing to do with any business Pablo had there. Nothing. The real business with its financing of interests was the Medellin cartel. We were talking about Griselda Blanco, Gonzalo Rodriguez Gacha, alias the Mexican, or El Mariachi in the series, the Ochoa brothers, and even Carlos Leder, or as they named him in the series, Marcos Herber. Marcos Herber, something like that. Guys, Pablo was a politician, objectively speaking, his worst mistake. Because before that, nobody really knew him or knew that he was the leader of a cartel. It wasn't that flashy. He was a completely anonymous criminal. He had discretion, but by breaking his own rule and getting into Congress, he became a totally public figure and a public target, when in '84 people realized that he was indeed not just an altruistic philanthropist helping people, but a drug trafficker. Who exposed Pablo? Two specific people. Rodrigo Lara Bonilla and Guillermo Cano. Rodrigo Lara, as Minister of Justice, was the first person to state in Congress that Pablo had ties to drug trafficking. And Guillermo Cano, who wasn't a politician but the director of El Espectador, the newspaper we have here, was the person who showed a very famous photo that maybe you've already seen, that everyone has likely seen, where Escobar is smiling but arrested at the same time with the cartel. Have you seen that photo? 1976, the first time they arrested Pablo. Guillermo Cano shows that photo in Congress to make it understood that this man indeed had a criminal past and was still doing it. Escobar is expelled in '84, when he himself entered in '82. In other words, as a politician, literally, not even 2 full years, 22 months, but almost 2 little years. He wanted enough political power for what? To remove or avoid the extradition law in Colombia. That was his biggest fear, being extradited specifically to the United States. Actually, what is Pablo Escobar's famous quote? He preferred a grave in Colombia over a cell in the United States. That's what he used to say, and it's important when talking about his death later on. But now, guys, I want you to look at these 2 photos here, and imagine you don't know Pablo Escobar at all, that this is just a random man to you. At random, if a man like this comes walking down the street, what would you say? How old does he look? And that is my question. He looks around 55, 50 years old. Yeah, the same.
Around there. Yes, so 50.
And here, a 60-something. That's it. Yes, that's the thing. Obviously he looks much older, but he is much younger, right? Here he is 41 and here he is only 43. These 2 years between photos, let's remember, or if you don't know, I'll tell you, Pablo died when he was 44. He was already a man, he already looked old. Yes, he already looked haggard. The stress basically aged him too much, right? If we are talking here about the beginning of his end or the beginning of the decline, this is the decline. This is the downfall of Pablo Escobar. Here he was constantly escaping from hideout to hideout, place to place, not seeing the sunlight for weeks just so the police operation would pass and everything would go on.
Oh, this place is huge.
City Furniture ahora es City Home, una forma más fácil, emocionante y completa de comprar para tu hogar. Ahora con más soluciones para cada espacio. Cocina, baños, closets, gimnasio, patios y mucho más. Junto a los muebles, colchones y decoración que ya conoces, con el valor excepcional en el que has confiado por más de 50 años. City Furniture ahora es City Home, your first stop for all things home.
They were prompt, they kept to their schedule, they communicated really clearly. I would definitely recommend Mr. Electric.
We were talking with our neighbors when we first moved in, and I said, we're probably gonna need some electrical work done, and I said, you need to call Mr. Electric. So we called them, and we're really glad we did.
They listened, which was very important, and took our idea and our concept and enhanced it. It's wonderful.
If you're looking for someone to do the job well, that's why you would call Mr. Electric.
Noticed. Let's keep moving forward. Whoever wants to move this door to feel the weight, do it now. Since I'm boxed in. That first, what do you think it is? Yes, looks like a submarine. It was complicated to guess. Actually, it's a flight simulator. Ready, flight simulator, guys, from the 80s. This one is from New Jersey. Escobar had these types of devices to train all his people to move in very complicated situations, because imagine having to fly very low to avoid radars and scanners. At the same time, of course, without the lights on at night, anyone could crash. Anyone could lose their life in this type of work. But the pay was so high that people risked it to be involved and be a narco pilot for Pablo Escobar. Guys, we are talking about the fact that at that time a kilo was worth $2,000. These $2,000, because of such a high commission and because they generally moved tons, the pilot could earn up to $300,000 in a single trip they were making. From $300,000. That was the payment for a Medellin cartel narco pilot. That's why anyone would come in here despite all the inherent risks. Come over here if you want to see the inside of the simulator. There we go. That is literally a president's strategy. That's why you see the two cars that were shot up are, curiously, the exact same Mercedes model. It's an 82 Mercedes model. Here you have 20 bullet holes, while on this side you have 76. Even if you lean in a bit, if you need to, you can see a couple of bullet holes on the roof as well. But if you look a bit further inside...
What? 1984, an attack by the Colombian government. Escobar was a politician and was expelled in '84. From then on, a war began that the guy never really won.
But the same government. Yes, that's exactly the same government. The same year as the attack. They didn't catch him. I mean, they didn't catch him. They launched that attack. No, they didn't reach him. They didn't get to him. They didn't get to him because they didn't even know exactly which car he was in. They thought it was this one, but really, no, not at all. Guys, if you look further inside, you'll see the car's interior is perfect. It's in perfect condition because no bullet actually penetrated it. Not even the ones in the roof, not even one. And don't get me wrong here, some layers were evidently broken, of course, other layers inside, right? Indeed, for example, you can see the shot up here much more easily. How many? How many in total here? 76. On the other one, only 20. Well, only, not 3,000 in quotes, only.
The car's body was level 5. The armor was level 5. At that time, almost the maximum, basically presidential grade armor. Back to talking about the presidency. And the first car you saw over there is a 1941 Pontiac Torpedo from that era, and it belonged to Al Capone. If you know or have heard of Al Capone. Yes, the Italian mafia, a person whom Pablo
admired. He truly admired him. Obviously, they never spoke because they were in very different eras. Al Capone died in '47, just when Pablo was being born 2 years later. But was this vehicle a collector's item or? It was a collector's item. Exactly. Obviously, Escobar bought so many cars, guys. He had 35 in the Monaco building alone. And he didn't actually get to drive many of the cars. For example, this car wasn't driven as such, it was just a collector's item from its era and part of Al Capone's Italian mafia collection. Literally, it was bought in Florida state and today it still works due to the maintenance it gets and because it was never really used, right? Working, it still runs. You get in and it starts rolling downhill. He liked soccer a lot, but also car racing, that's why you see 2 race cars up there on the sides. This is a Renault 4, the one over there is an Italian Simca. This one was raced in the Marlboro Cup, the other in the Renault Cup. Pablo Escobar even won trophies. He actually won a cup in a totally illegal way. A totally illegal and cheating way. Yes, it was totally.
But I imagine it was also because he had so much money he could perhaps use the best ones. Or was it pure or was it just pure cheating? Actually, it was bought, it was pay to win, and he would pop the tires of anyone in the middle of the race, like his cousin Gustavo Gonzalo.
Gonzalo would pop the wheel, Gonzalo, or in real life, Gustavo. Real photo, yes. Literally those are photos taken with his Porsche Carrera Turbo and the Porsche 911. Other race cars he had at some point. That is a quote from Nicolas Escobar. Nicolas Escobar is the owner of the museum. Got it, Nicolas. Owner of the museum. Pablo's nephew. By the way, that is the nephew. 56, 55 years old. He is the son. Yes, he knew Pablo while he was alive.
Yes, of course. You might have seen Pablo's son in some interview somewhere, right? He is media savvy. He is somewhat.
But now he even gives lectures and everything. Exactly. Lectures, books about his dad. Much more media exposed, unlike Pablo's daughter, Manuela, the little one.
She doesn't even have social media.
She really leads a totally private life, low profile, without absolutely anyone bothering her.
Only her name is known. Who was she, guys? The first small plane Pablo Escobar got was this Cessna right here, with which he started moving money entirely inside. No drugs really. And he moved that money from Panama to Colombia and vice versa with the help of the Panamanian president at the time, who was who? Manuel Antonio Noriega.
Manuel Noriega. Who was what? He was overthrown.
An original never blends in. She follows her own lead. She doesn't play the part. She rewrites it. All by staying true to herself. Originality should always be within reach. TJ Maxx. Never uniform. Always you.
Indeed, he was even extradited. What did Pablo do in Panama? Launder the money and hide it. And not only that, in fact, Pablo had more to do with Panama than just laundering money there with Noriega's help. He took refuge in Panama. He took refuge in Panama when the assassination of Rodrigo Lara Bonilla happened in '84, and in fact
it was him. Well, I mean, they left quickly.
Indeed, but actually his daughter Manuela was born in Panama. That photo over there, the one with the helicopter, come over here to see it a bit better. The Hacienda Naples.
No, that's not the hacienda. It's called the Bizcocho estate or residence. This is about 7 kilometers from here. But look at the photo, it's not the Hacienda Naples itself. Now, if you see that photo without any context, what would you say is happening there? Landing. They were diving into the pool, just for fun. That one is a bit more epic.
The escape.
The escape. They are fleeing. Got it. Someone here already gave me the correct answer. He did. Ready. That was what was happening. They were diving into the pool from a helicopter. That's what they went as far as doing instead of using a diving board, right? Which was the normal thing. One would say it's madness. Would any of you do that? But jump, yet stay crouched because...
That's true. How it's done. Well, obviously because of the propeller. No, not me.
No, not you. You would. Maybe yes. Guys, do you like soccer? I do.
Yes. Are you fans of any team?
Cali. Here in. Deportivo Cali or America? No, Cali. Cali. Deportivo Cali. Are you a fan of any soccer team? No, not soccer.
Colombian. I like Nacional. Nacional.
And from Venezuela or Europe? Oh no, Real Madrid. Okay, Real Madrid over here. Any from Europe? Barca? I don't have a real one. Real is better. And Nacional obviously here in Colombia. Guys, Why am I talking about soccer? Because it also has to do with Pablo, besides it being his hobby. Obviously, here, of Andres Escobar. Here, I see, Andres Escobar in the photo. Andres Escobar. Ah, the soccer player. Who died? They killed him in '94, right? Because of the World Cup. But beyond that, let's talk about this. Here, guys, we have two soccer teams here in Medellin. The red one, Independiente Medellin, and the green one, Atlético Nacional. Pablo, guys, who did he give money to, of the two? To Nacional. To both. To both. He actually gave money to both of them. I'm seeing sponsored. Exactly. He gave money to both. Why? Because they were local city teams. They represented Medellin. But he was a fan of only one. Of Medellin. He was a fan of Deportivo Independiente.
But the question is, why then Medellin? Why did Nacional succeed more than Medellin? Because you saw more success in the...
The reason is something more institutional, let's say, knowing how to use that money they were putting in, right? But obviously, being a real, true fan, he was of this one. Got it. But he gave to both. If they tell me that I, a Nacional fan, was benefited by Pablo, well yes, that's known and there's no secret regarding that. Now, in many parts of the world, people think he was a fan of the green team, but that came to light more, you know, and it was much more media driven. Obviously. We know Rene, the Scorpion, obviously, guys. Friend of Pablo. He was friends with Pablo Escobar, even said by him, it's no secret around here, but he was investigated, obviously for having links with Pablo. It was discovered that he wasn't a negotiator, a front man, or a drug user. No, he had nothing to do with the business, beyond a great friendship that he did have. Got it, they were close. This is Nicholas, the real owner of the museum. That is a statue of Pablo, nephew. And this is Diego Armando Maradona. With Maradona. Oh, yes. Do you know the story well? That's a good one. Maradona. In 1991, Pablo Escobar played a soccer match with Maradona. Why? Because Pablo was a fan of this soccer player. So, he invited him to play at La Catedral. At La Catedral, at the prison where Pablo Escobar was locked up. Guys, they played the match. Maradona arrives there, according to him, without knowing he was going to play against Pablo Escobar. But well, he arrived, he saw Pablo's face, he had to play the game, right? Who won? Who won the soccer match? He won, right? You said, Pablo Escobar. Escobar. Obviously, guys, the obvious and most normal thing to say is that Maradona trounced him, scored 10 goals.
But well, if it were any other type of rival, if this guy is the rival, you have to show a little more intent not to win, evidently. But he didn't win. He did win.
The winner of the match was Pablo Escobar Gaviria. Pablo Escobar, evidently, whether out of fear or because they paid him or whatever, Maradona let himself lose. That is well known. Furthermore, soccer matches with Escobar were very complicated because you knew what time they started, but not what time the match would end.
Until they got tired.
Until he won or, well, until at least he tied or won the match. Then one says, the match is over now, perfect. So obviously I think he let himself lose a little bit, right? But guys, obviously Maradona didn't leave empty-handed after that match and the post-match party, because Maradona pocketed $5 million in cash from Pablo Escobar. So, I think we already know why Maradona lost the match.
5 million.
5 is 5.
But was there any intention of perhaps bringing him to a team or some approach, or was it just for fun that he brought him at that moment? No, by 91 Pablo wasn't really that. Maradona was already in his final stage too. Maradona, I think, played until 93 or 94.
Already burning his last cartridge, already. There was nothing left. Oh, I see.
Who is that man over there? The one on the left, James Bond.
Yes, of course, I was asking about the actor, but...
Yes, the character is James Bond. Evidently the actor was Roger Moore, the British Hollywood actor. Guys, Pablo Escobar was a fan of these types of 007 agent films, James Bond, and that film from 78, 77, he really liked it. It was called The Spy Who Loved Me. But he didn't just like the movie, but the things he saw inside the movie. What things specifically? The jet ski, right? He saw the jet ski inside the movie, and what did the guy say? Well, that he wanted one too. Yes. Seeing that the studio wouldn't give him the original, because he tried to buy specifically the one they were using in the film, the studio refused 1,000 times. Not out of fear, but simply because they didn't intend to auction it, much less sell it. Okay, simply no. At that moment that wasn't the idea. Pablo Escobar. So, seeing that the original one wouldn't be picked up, what does the guy do? He starts building or has 10 made just for himself. 10 almost exact replicas. Because if you look at Pablo's and the one from the movie, what's the main difference you notice?
That one has the letters on top and this one has them down here.
There it is. That's the main difference, the wet bite. The white letters are on the bottom on Escobar's, on the movies they're on the top, guys. This is an aqua scooter. Exactly. When you're diving, when you're in the water, you put it on and go much faster. A diving device from the movie as well. One of the first jet skis to arrive in Colombia. And that is a photo of Pablo Escobar at Hacienda Naples. That is Hacienda Naples, his so-called 30 square kilometer estate, basically 3,000 hectares, where he had artificial lakes like the one in the photo. Some lakes had white sand from Cancun, some lakes, not absolutely all of the sand. But what is known is how many lakes he had already put in. How many did he have? How many would you say?
7, something like that.
How many? 7.
7, a little more. A little more.
20.
A little more. A little less. 25.
25. 27.
27. Indeed, 27 artificial lakes inside Hacienda Naples. We know, guys, that he had his private zoo, his 100 fruit trees, his airfields, etc. The Hacienda Naples still exists. It's still there and people go. I don't know if you've gone or if you happen to visit the Hacienda.
Have you gone yet? How long ago? Like 2 days ago. 2 days. Yes, just recently.
Oof.
Is it far or close? From here, like 3.5 hours.
Yes, hours more or less.
Almost 4 hours. It is quite a ways from Medellin, it must be said.
But it's a good place for a vacation. Maybe it's cool.
You can stay there and everything, right?
Yes, it has hotels with. At the Santorini, it's 5 minutes further. On inside the park.
That too.
And how long did you guys stay? A day or
2 days at Santorini?
days? You even stayed there at the Hacienda.
And what did you see over there?
At the Hacienda? Oh, everything, right? The animals, the museum, no, we didn't do the water park part, only the car tour inside the Hacienda to see it. But others do the whole water area and it's still huge. It's giant, and you go out in that heat, it's something crazy over there.
It really is giant. Watch out, it's not actually 3,000 hectares anymore, guys. We know that in '89 Pablo tried. No, he didn't try, he did it. He blew up a commercial Avianca plane, right? Because he wanted to assassinate one single person, Cesar Gaviria. Cesar Gaviria, who was a presidential candidate at that time. Indeed, Gaviria was not on exactly the plane that Escobar blew up with more than 100 totally normal, innocent people inside. Civilians, as you might say, civilians with nothing to do with Pablo, not even anything political.
The only one was Cesar Gaviria, who wasn't on that plane at the last moment. Why am I telling you this? Because in '91, if I tell you that Pablo Escobar, the most wanted man in the world, was the one who set conditions for his own government to lock him up, it would sound like a movie, like something out of fiction, but that's what happened that year, right? Why? Because Pablo tells the government, no type of extradition is necessary. Get rid of that and I will turn myself in totally peacefully. Quote, Pablo is going to turn himself into the government with a couple of terms, obviously. What are the main terms? Number 1, he isn't going to just any prison, he is going to build his own prison, and that's where La Catedral comes from, where Maradona was, for example. The second one, what was it? That no one from the government, none of them could monitor him from the inside. They couldn't get into the prison to see what he was doing, much less fly over the area. And if there was some type of police or guard hanging around, well, that police or guard was going to be chosen by him. So the guy literally made himself another house in there, and the government was aware that the man built a house there. They became totally aware.
That is the important thing, because how does a government that was led by President Cesar Gaviria at that time, the person Pablo tried to kill 2 years earlier, say yes to such an obvious and atrocious thing? Why? And so absurd, that is the best word. They say yes to them, not really out of any kind of weakness, but out of desperation. Colombia was basically mired in constant narco-terrorism from Pablo Escobar with explosive devices. Assassinations, kidnappings. So, what does the government say? The police too.
So, what does Pablo say? What does the government say? Pablo, fine, build your whole prison, whatever you want, it doesn't matter, but obviously stop the war and don't do anything illegal inside. Behave like one, like a real prisoner. Ready? And he was only going to have to stay there, at first, for 5 years. 5 years wasn't much either. It was also a gift for everything Pablo Escobar had done, right? Only 5 years. What does Pablo say? Yes, let's do it. Go ahead, I'll stay there for the 5 years and I won't do absolutely anything illegal inside. That was real. The guy was a real prisoner in there.
Oh no, it was a joke in there.
A total joke, you could say. Obviously, pure games. First, well, it was a prison with soccer fields, a pool, jacuzzis, restaurants, motorcycles inside. They rode motorcycles around La Catedral.
Nightclubs, women, all of that.
Women, friends, parties. Yes, that was basically a kind of resort or a mansion that the guy built because they gave him a free pass, right? In fact, his own room had a double bed, a jacuzzi there, a sauna, as they say, a Turkish bath. Obviously, the guy was living great, like some sort of king. And he made that clear, because if I tell you that that photo is something Pablo sent to the government to let them know that he is indeed keeping his part of the deal. What do you think? That photo is obviously a joke that Pablo Escobar also sent, a type of game, because are you going to tell me what kind of prisoner you have here? A well-groomed mustache, a Russian hat.
Russian.
That is important because the photo was also going to the United States.
That was like a perfect sweater.
A shirt and a slight little smile. And it's worth noting that that cell is open.
Right? The cell is completely open. Even if we imagine it had a padlock, it was useless.
I've been a client of Mr. Electric's for probably 20 years, so Mr. Electric has been tremendous for us. Mr. Electric's always been able to help us with whatever we needed to make the home better. Making sure we had the right amperage for our Christmas lights, we had new fire alarms put in, lighting on our patio, whatever we needed. I would certainly recommend Mr. Electric. They do what they say they're going to do, and to me that's the key thing to doing business with anyone.
Oh, this place is huge.
City Furniture is now City Home. An easier, more exciting, more complete way to shop for home. Now with more solutions for every room, kitchen, bath, closets, gym, backyards, and more. Along with the furniture, mattresses, and decor you know. At the unbeatable value you've counted on for over 50 years. City Furniture is now City Home. Your first stop for all things home.
The cell was completely useless, right? Because the padlock didn't even work. If the padlock were here in such a way that it did this, well, if it were doing its job by just being here, I really wouldn't need to move this to slide the cell door. Okay, now, guys, Pablo escapes in 92. Why? Because he kept running the cartel from the inside and because he murdered 2 specific people there, Galeano and Moncada. Due to that murder, a criminal group called Los Pepis was created. Los Pepis stands for People Persecuted by Pablo Escobar, the acronym Los Pepis. But something else also happened, and that is that the government obviously finds out about that murder. That is what completely overflows the cup. They decided to go for Pablo to move him to a real maximum security prison. At that moment it was in Bogota, in the same country, but it was a totally legitimate prison for a character like Pablo Escobar. Indeed, Pablo realizes when the military arrives, what had Pablo already done? He wasn't there anymore. He had already flown. He had already left. He had to deal with, totally easy against. And that is important for his death too because the report skips several things and that is one. But guys, have you seen Narcos on Netflix? No, it's not very necessary either because that is historical fiction. As they say, that is historical fiction. They invent characters, change the order of events, etc. But then, how does he escape in Narcos, which is the best example of something that is a little exaggerated? In Narcos, he escapes through an underground tunnel while there were shootouts with the police. In real life, firstly, there were tunnels, but the escape was not like that. It was much simpler. Through the back, he left through the woods, simply. And second, nobody saw Pablo escape. Really, when they arrived and entered the prison, it was already empty. There was absolutely no one, not Pablo, not the men who were with him, not even his brother Roberto, who was also stuck there in prison with him. Roberto also surrendered with Pablo. But Roberto later actually surrenders. That is, Roberto actually surrenders. That's why he was in prison and the Pepis sent him a letter bomb in jail. Guys, No, Roberto is alive today. He is alive. He is already in his 80s. In Laureles, Los Pepis no longer exist.
Nor even any cartel anymore. That doesn't exist here anymore. Careful, obviously drug trafficking and criminality do exist, but not something as big as a cartel. It's just said that, in fact, the tunnels were to distract, right? That when the son says they were in the ones who had escaped through the tunnels, it was so they would be searching the tunnels while he continued.
While the guy just took down a fake brick wall in the back and walked off through the woods, taking advantage of the fog that was up there, because that was on top of a mountain in Envigado. In Envigado.
Have you guys happened to go see the cathedral by any chance? We went, but they don't let you in anymore.
They already sealed it off. Another day.
As of last year, you could even just go in there on your own out of nowhere. And nowadays, as my friend told me, it is completely closed off. Are there still hippos at the estate?
Yes, yes.
That you can see too, but there's a part they told us, well, a little path where you can see them sort of free, right?
But no, we didn't manage to get that far.
Guys, the Italian Lambretta, because if I stand here and I see a motorcycle quickly pass by on the street out of the corner of my eye, I'm only going to see the red color, while over there I'm only going to see it black. I repeat, that wasn't the red one.
Evidently. No, but I saw them on a red one. But I saw them on a black one. So, the police were obviously going to be completely confused because two people or more were saying two totally different things. In Colombia, it is completely illegal to paint motorcycles like that. Since that moment, just so you know. Before, you could. Since that moment they repeated it 10 times. Well no, it's totally illegal now. Don't get me wrong, you can obviously have two colors on a motorcycle, but not like that, right? No, not 50-50, it's totally illegal. In Colombia, they went as far as banning something that was even really crazy, that there couldn't be two guys on a motorcycle. In Colino, in Cali you can't, still a bit of.
You can't have a passenger, well, you can't say it, because you know that.
I can't imagine what it is, but in Cali you can't for safety. In Cali, you still can't. You can't ride with passengers after 12 years old. Now in some places it may still not be allowed, as they tell me here in Cali, indeed, but it's a bit more normal in some places or in most of the country, right? But at some point, it wasn't. Why? Because Pablo was paying anyone who killed a police officer, right? Not just hitmen, anyone. It was $2,000 to $3,000. It was more than 1,000,000 pesos. While the salary back then was what? Like 30-something thousand pesos barely, maybe 40,000 pesos, and for a police officer they gave them up to 1,000,000 pesos. Imagine that, obviously, compared to the salary. Why was Pablo so beloved in some places? Guys, because of these kinds of things. These two photos here, come here, let me tell you about them. Before, after, when Escobar saw those kinds of lives, well, the man decided to change them and he built a neighborhood totally for free for all those people. That is why he was so loved at some point by so many people. So, this is where it becomes glorifying, not explaining why he was so loved as I am telling you. In fact, that neighborhood is called the Pablo Escobar neighborhood because of the people inside, not Pablo Escobar himself. The original name was Medellin without slums or Medellin without those types of houses you see there in that photo. That is a slum. The people, being so grateful and fond of the man who changed their lives for the better, at least in this sector, well, they came and said, hey, let's call it the Pablo Escobar neighborhood in honor of the person who literally built those houses for us. 443 in total. Now, the reality is that people also say that Pablo actually did that because all those people were later going to give him their votes, and that is what happened. They were going to give him the votes so that he could get into Congress. So, it was not just a simple matter of being a Robin Hood. The guy obviously wanted all those people he was supporting to lend him a hand later so he could get where he wanted. Be that as it may, he evidently wanted something more. Be that as it may, well, he left them the houses and that is why people still love him, right? In that sector, if you go there, I don't know if you have been to the Pablo Escobar neighborhood.
But it is not called, one does not find it as Pablo Escobar neighborhood or anything like that.
Actually, if you look for it, it might come up. It might come up because that is the name it has. But an official name, let's say, doesn't even exist, because the mayor's office has tried to go there to talk to those people about changing the neighborhood's name and they've always said no. They won't change the name for anything, at least not for now, right? I remember telling you about Pablo's height, right? Because he was much shorter than that statue you see there. The man was Faya de los Dolores Gaviria, Abel de Jesus Escobar, an elementary school teacher and a farmer. A farmer, a peasant. The two of them had 7 children, 7 in the second row. And here you have them from oldest to youngest. The oldest I think is the best known of them all. It's Roberto. is still alive. I hear he lives in Laureles. Roberto Jesus Escobar Gaviria, also known as Solosito or El Peluche, nice and calm, or El Peluche in the show El Patron del Mal, right? The only one of Pablo's brothers who got into the business with him and was the accountant for the Medellin cartel. He was never a killer. Never. He never killed anyone ever. He only handled the administration and the accounts for the cartel. Ultimately, he was part of the cartel, and that is why he was imprisoned. Clearly, although he turned himself in after escaping La Catedral, when he was imprisoned there in '93, well obviously, guys, he received a letter bomb. A letter bomb from the Pepis, Perseguidos por Pablo Escobar, created after the murder of Galeano and Moncada. Today he is alive, completely alive, and lives in Laureles. There, he's about 80 years old or so. Gloria, Pablo's favorite sister, the one who loved him the most and supported him without getting into the business itself, literally like his mom. They all knew, everyone was involved with Pablo, close to him, but never in the cartel business. Never. They were never criminals themselves. But the siblings, they are all alive, except for Pablo and the youngest. Both parents died in 2006. Diabetes and a heart attack, being elderly. Really, nothing is unusual about that. This is the very famous photo that everyone has seen. Everyone has seen. The first one. In 1976. The problem is that this guy had enough power and money here to say if I pay these people, they will let me go quickly. And that's why he's smiling, because he knew it. That's why he went, and the cigarettes. No. Yes, tobacco, cigarettes, Marlboros, liquor, whiskey, mostly drugs too, appliances. Yes, during his time as a smuggler, remember? Argemiro, the brother who looked most like him. If you want, come closer. The brother who looked most like him. He was afraid one of Pablo's enemies would kill him, thinking they were killing Pablo. Because of that, he lives a low-profile life, pretty much his whole life, and he's still alive today, living near Guadalupe. Ready? They went to Guadalupe. To Guadalupe. Yes, Guadalupe. You went to Guadalupe. Asking if you went to Guadalupe. You went to Guadalupe. No, not you guys yet.
No, I haven't passed by, but we didn't go in.
Yes, he has. That, Alba Marina, Luz Maria, also Pablo's sisters, but nothing like Gloria, because they didn't agree with their brother's business. They distanced themselves from him to avoid getting involved. In fact, when Pablo died, they didn't receive money directly from him. Not directly. From their mom, yes, but not from him as such. This is the well, they are alive. They move around El Poblado. And this is Luis Fernando, the one I told you passed away. 1977, December 25th, literally on Christmas, a car accident. When he was in that car, it flipped. The car flipped along with his girlfriend when he was 19.
A car that Pablo gave him, right?
The car he gave him on the 24th.
The car Pablo gifted him flipped once.
On the 24th. The truck. That is Nicolas Escobar. He is the Nicolas Escobar. He's the owner of the museum, guys. He is the boss of all this here, but it's not that old either. It's not that old. He is, I say guys, but besides being the owner of the museum, he is Pablo Escobar's nephew. He is the nephew, son, of Roberto. He is the son of Roberto, the oldest. He is 50-something years old now, 55, 56. He is alive. He generally lives near Bogota, his main residence, but nowadays, in fact, he is around here at the museum. I think he was here yesterday, the day before, 3 days ago, 4 days ago. So, I think he should be here today too, right? He is a journalist. Pablo had 2 children, but as I told you, they changed their identities and went to Argentina to start over and not be so involved with their father. Even though nowadays they are a bit more media friendly, as Juan Pablo, or Juan, told you on Disney. On Disney Plus. Have you seen the new series about Pablo's son? Oh, yes, you've already seen it all. Yes, what happens, that the theories change depending on who fired the shot. In El Patron del Mal, the Colombian police kill him. So, there is a total difference here. DR Colombian police. The official report says it was the Colombian police who finished off Pablo Escobar in the operation with the help of the DEA. The DEA was there. Los Pepis were there too. That's not on their uniforms. It's completely left out because it would sound horrible to say it. Now, they kill Pablo with a 9mm bullet. They hit him here, kill him, receive thousands in rewards from the United States, and obviously they get the medal for having finished off the most wanted man, and we're talking about officially. What happened? Officially, it was the government. That was the government. It was the Colombian police, right? But why do I stress officially so much? Because there are other unofficial things, like those who say Los Pepis killed him, because Los Pepis, as I tell you, were still there. They were there working with the Colombian police and the DIA. I mean, they were helping in that operation because the only thing that linked them was Pablo Escobar, right? Now, what would have happened if Los Pepis had killed him?
Well, the government would have been left behind.
Who would the money have gone to? To Los Pepis.
To Los Pepis. They would have had to give the money to Los Pepis. 10 million was for Los Pepis, not for the government. In Cali, they also say that
Los Pepis killed him.
Yes, that those from the Cali cartel were the ones who located him, and then the police arrived to put on the show.
The big show and the little photo. The famous little photo of the Pablo Escobar trophy. Well, guys, but there's more, right? Not just that they killed him, but that he committed suicide. That he killed himself, right? That is also said, and we are going to talk about that too, because that one is a bit more familiar, actually more supported by the whole family. Basically, they say that Pablo killed himself for several reasons. First, because of the motto he had. He prefers a grave in Colombia over a cell in the United States. Second, he was exhumed for a second time in 2006 by the family, also by Nicolas Escobar, to see if what was officially stated was indeed what happened, and they discovered that the bullet was indeed a 9mm. That is absolutely true. The bullet is correct, but not the shot, because according to the official story it was here, right? In the second exhumation, they realized it wasn't here, but here, inside the right ear. And they say that the trajectory, the path of the bullet was totally linear. It was almost like an entry and exit. Imagine that. A very complicated trajectory for a rooftop chase with a guy who isn't going to stand still for the bullet to go straight through like that, right? Why do I emphasize the 9mm? Because that bullet is common. It's literally just any pistol. People say it could have been a sniper, but I don't know many snipers with a little 9mm bullet like that, prone to coming from a pistol. He grabbed his own weapon and decided to shoot himself inside the ear, inside. That's the thing, because in the autopsy, you see a mark or a tattoo on this part of the skull, which points to a shot from up close, point blank, not a long-distance shot by any means. Now, what would have happened if they, the Colombian police, if they officially said that Pablo Escobar killed himself, that when they arrived, he was already dead? He was already dead? Who would have collected the $10 million? No one would collect it. No one, absolutely no one, because no one killed him and no one captured him. That's why it was easier for them to say, yes, indeed we killed him. Give us the credit, give us the cash, and the little medal too. The person most credited with the death of Pablo is Hugo Aguilar, Colonel Hugo Aguilar, who years after Pablo's death, well, the guy went to prison. He went to prison, they put him in jail. He was imprisoned because they discovered that he also had support and links to drug trafficking, to paramilitary groups in Colombia.